Peace and blessings, beloved. Come here to be educated, empowered, enlightened, inspired, motivated, and challenged to be critical and independent thinkers. Let's get to it.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Who else gon' believe in you? Who else gon' believe in you? Who else gon' believe in you? Believe in yourself. Yeah. Who else gon' believe in you? Who else gon' believe in you? Who else gon' believe in you? Believe in yourself. Health is wealth.
Peace and blessings, beloved. I pray all is well with you and yours. Welcome to the Life LessonsU Series, D. Rose Believe in Yourself edition. Today we're going to discuss the topic of perseverance using the story of the Windy City assassin, one Mr. Derrick Rose himself, who was an NBA player and was once touted as the next big thing. However, as a good number of you already know, his career was derailed by a series of devastating knee injuries, as well as ankle issues, all of which also resulted in some psychological battles which impacted him both on and off the court. And so what actually spurred this desire of mine to cover this story, despite the fact that I've long had admiration for Derrick Rose, his character, his humility, even prior to the injuries, which is really what I want to point out here. Clearly, he had a great night statistically on Halloween. He had a career high, which is kind of unheard of for a veteran in his 11th year, especially one that has had the injury history that he has. I just thought it was very appropriate to the tenor of my platform to cover a story like this, in which I could extract the concepts of perseverance and grit and resilience and mental toughness, and really drive home how important these attributes are, and then just to show a model of character and humility in a young man who's had adversity, and really show that people can also battle adversity in the same way and come out on top, enlightened and reinvigorated and still confident and assured in ourselves and understanding who we are and what we want in life. And also the concept of value, which I think is very, very much essential to have a firm grasp on, will be covered in this topic as well. It's of utmost importance to have an understanding about value, self-value, and to also see how the world assigns us value. And it's going to be very clear to you as we get into this coverage that the world does indeed assign a value to you. Everybody does, whether it's your employer, your friend, your significant other, your children. Anybody you deal with on a daily basis has given you a value. And it's important to understand that dynamic in every relationship so that you can properly navigate them and maximize on your return from your perceived value. Now, before we get to the post-game press conference, I want to show you some reaction commentary from some of the popular sports shows from around the world. And then I'm going to use some of the quotes to provide context to the message that I want to convey. So first up, we have the show Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe, the former being a longtime member of the sports media and the latter being a Hall of Fame NFL tight end.
How do you explain the performance from him last night?
It was Halloween. He dressed up as D. Rose 2011 when he was the MVP. That's why I explained it. It was a magical moment.
You'll notice Shannon Sharpe referencing Derrick Rose dressing up as the 2011 version of himself. Of course, that being the year that he won the Most Valuable Player award. And then he also referenced it as a follow-up as being a magical moment. And so when you hear phrase and verbiage like that, it's important to put it in its proper context and think about instances in which you are able to relate to that phrase or that word. So a magical moment, you think about what was a magical moment in your life. And typically, if you're an adult, you don't really experience magical moments. Now, the world may try to tell you that, love is a magical thing or, something to that effect. But if you really dig in the crates and think about it, magical moments are reserved for children because it really speaks to a fantasy, something that is not real, something that you can escape reality to experience and enjoy. And so when you hear that kind of phrase being used to describe this Derrick Rose moment, it just goes to show you that this individual, and he speaks for a lot of people, because as you'll hear, Skip also shares that sentiment as well, as do many others. But again, what I want you to focus on is how lightly they're taking this moment. Now, they do give Derrick Rose a little bit of credit and praise in this clip, but you can definitely feel the undertone being a lack of seriousness as it relates to how they view this moment. Now, of course, it would be foolhardy to think that Derrick Rose is now going to go on a tear where he's averaging 35 points a game. Clearly, that's not his role on the team. If you know anything about the NBA and about the Minnesota Timberwolves in particular, you know his position on that team, not his playing position, but his role in the hierarchy. He's a bench player, and so by virtue of that, he won't get the minutes to sustain what he's doing. And he's 11 years in the league with those injuries, and so we know that his body probably won't be able to sustain that. But the point is this: Derrick Rose is still highly gifted, extremely talented as a basketball player, and his passion and love for the game will allow him to continue to play at a high level, because he knows that if he cannot play at a high level, he won't play. That's just how he sees the thing. He's not just going to collect a check. He's very wealthy. He had a very lucrative deal that he signed with Adidas. I don't know the particulars of his contract, but what I do know is that it was quite substantial. I think $250 million over the life of it. And so he has money, and he knows his value, and he understands the story that he wants to write for his career. And so I definitely applaud him for that. And I just want to bring it home that it's important to always know your worth, to always know your value, and to never let any external factor determine that. Now, having said that, it's important to understand how the world sees you, so that you can maximize on the value they assign to you, because there's no way to get around that. I mean, if you work at a job, the employer has a value on you. That's your salary. And of course, there's opportunity for bonuses or overtime or things like that. But the second that you don't produce according to the value that has been assigned to you, you will no longer have that job. Similarly, in friendships, relationships, your partner, your friend assigns a value to you. You've been in dynamics where you've had people who come to you when they need something. You might hear from them once in a blue moon, but that blue moon is definitely going to be a time of need for them. That's the value that they've assigned to you. They don't necessarily want to spend time with you, but they value your counsel. They know that you'll listen to them, that you may give them the answer that they want. I could go deeper into that, but the point is, understand your value, understand that people might not take you seriously, but you should always take yourself seriously.
You know, he said when he first got into the league, he wanted to win the MVP. Now at this juncture of his career, he wants to be sixth man of the year.
And so what I really want to touch on here briefly is the importance of setting personal goals and having those goals be both audacious and realistic. You know, what does that mean? So of course you can make a lofty goal. You can make a goal that might seem to be far-fetched to others, but that you, knowing yourself, of course, knowing the heart, the passion, the grit, the determination that you have inside of you, you can make that goal with a certain level of confidence. And so with that, you have to also be realistic as to not set yourself further back and regress as opposed to progress. And so Derrick Rose clearly thinks that he can reach this goal. I don't think this is an instance of wishful thinking. I don't think Derrick Rose is foolish enough to set a goal that is too difficult for him to achieve just for him to have those psychological demons re-enter his life. And so it's critical that we set personal goals. We should always be looking for ways in which to improve ourselves into making an impact in life in general and then in the lives of other people. So my homework for you, if you so choose, is for you to go be by yourself and really contemplate your life. Contemplate where you are currently and where you want to go. And set some goals. Put pen to paper and write out some things that you want to accomplish. And I want you to be audacious and realistic. And you'll find that when you marry those two, there are no bounds to what you can accomplish, because you've already set the stage based on the level of confidence that you have and understanding where you are in the world. So again, I encourage you all to do it. I'm going to definitely continue to do so.
If you remember, Skip, I think it came out in 2008. Russ was in that draft. He was doing what we see Russ do before Russ was doing.
And so here we have both Skip and Shannon with the Russell Westbrook comparison with Derrick Rose. And, you know, this comparison has been made over the years. I believe they both came out the same year, as they alluded to in the clip, the 2008 season. And, you know, if you watch both of their games, you can definitely see similarities. Both have a somewhat unconventional style or approach to the game. Both, you know, extremely athletic. And I would say that they've relied more so on their athleticism than their actual raw basketball talent. They've had to pretty much hone that as they've gotten to the league. And you'll see some players who come into the league with a certain set of fundamental skills because they have not had the luxury of relying on athleticism. But in Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook's case, the opposite is true. And so here, I think it's important to note that you play a dangerous game when you compare yourself to other people. Now, of course, there are similarities that we share with others, and those similarities may lead us to see where they are in life compared to where we are in life and want to make changes to our life to mirror them because we have a certain level of envy toward them. And so it's definitely, you know, not an issue to have an individual that you model certain things about your life after, or that you admire in them and you want to see yourself do those things or accomplish those things, but you got to know your own value. And so here we see externally people putting a comparison on to individuals, which can be dangerous if said individuals are weak-minded and not able to process exactly what the situation is, meaning that the media has a job. The media's job is to create sound bites or video clips that become viral, become popular, and are talked about beyond the show. And so with Russ and Derrick Rose, again, similarities definitely there. Yeah, both have an erratic, almost Tasmanian devil-like approach to the game. Both have already paid for it with injury to their knees and their lower extremities. But I don't think it's fair to ever compare two people. Situations are different. Psychologies are different. It's just two different people. So I think it's always unfair to do so, but I get it. I just wanted to point out that it's important that we understand the reason why comparisons are made, and we should be careful not to fall into that trap ourselves.
But the knee injury and then the ankle injuries, and it was always something, Skip, that just robbed him. And he can give you flashes. Now, I don't know if this is an outlier, not 50. But, Skip, we've seen it even in Cleveland. You remember last year in Cleveland, Skip, when LeBron went to, they played the Wizards in D.C., and LeBron went for that 57.
Yep.
He had like 25, 26 points.
You also came in here a lot of mornings and you were not happy.
No. And all the fans, they were cheering him. I wonder if they're going to still be cheering him when all of a sudden he don't show up and he's supposed to be there. And he got dreads now and he come back with a fade. Will they still be cheering him then, Skip? Because we know there's sometimes that he's a very mercurial person. He can just disappear and he'll call you from wherever he is like, I ain't going to be able to make it. Bro, we done played 3 games. What you talking about you're not going to be able to make it?
All right, so you know, this guy Shannon, man. I've definitely enjoyed, being entertained by this minstrel, this guy Shannon Sharpe. And of course, let me back up and say minstrel, meaning entertainer. I'm not making any allusion just because he's a black man. And we know the history of that word and its use towards black entertainers. But the word means entertainer. So what you'll see or notice from, any content that I put out, I don't shy away from anything, and I use words the way that they were intended to be used. I don't care about how, the world or certain groups have used words. I'm going to use the word the way it was defined and the way it was intended to be used in its proper context. So, yeah, he's a minstrel, as is Skip Bayless, as is, everybody that you see on TV, these athletes included. They're all entertainers. They're all put here to entertain us, to distract us from our lives, from the world at large. And we'll get to that in other videos, but back to this clip. This guy, he begins his rant on Derrick Rose and, alluding to the fact that he's had history of leaving teams. I don't want to say unexpectedly, but, he'll just up and leave a team, take some time for himself for what he says is his mental well-being. Shannon said that he came back. He left with a fade, came back with dreads, or, that he may do the opposite, leave with dreads and come back with a fade this time. And so, man, look, I'm not one to make light of anybody who is battling demons, in whatever form they manifest themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually. And demons are real. Again, like I alluded to in that Habib and Connor analysis. If you don't believe in demons, keep rocking with your boy and you will. You definitely will be a believer. And so what I want you to really take away from this portion of the clip is that it is critically important that we never make light of the issues that others go through or that we go through. So if you're feeling a certain kind of way, if you're down, if you're depressed, if you know that something isn't right in your spirit, don't just shirk it. Don't just, push it to the side. Really pay attention to it. Really desire to resolve it. Because if you don't, it's just going to dovetail out of control. And before you know it, you'll make decisions that will be rash and dangerous and detrimental to yourself. And then the same for others. If you see it in other people, you definitely want to make it a point to go to them in confidence and tell them that you're there for them, that you notice this about them, and that you want to help them. Because listen, man, a lot of things happen because of little specks of angst or anxiety or hurt or pain or anger that manifests because it isn't addressed. Just like any kind of virus or cancer or tumor, it starts off small and then it metastasizes. And so you don't want to let anything fester to the point that it could explode. And so I think this was, good for TV, but I definitely have an issue with anybody poking fun at an individual who's battling, any kind of demons. And so, again, man, I salute D Rose for being a stand-up guy throughout everything. His perseverance is definitely to be recognized and acknowledged.
I agree with you. I got caught up in it. I started watching maybe in the third quarter, and I could not turn it off because it was a fairy tale. It's just like impossible what he's doing and doing and doing. And the truth is, when I watched LeBron and company play up there the other night at Minnesota, I would see the guy with dread score, and I'd say, who's? Oh, that's Derrick Rose. Oh, I forgot about oh, that's that guy. Yeah. Really?
So Skip Bayless also got caught up in the fairy tale. Again, think about the word fairy tale. What demographic is that term normally ascribed to or used by? Children. Children, or in some cases women. A lot of cases women who want a fairy tale romance or fairy tale marriage or fairy tale wedding. Let me dial it back for this video. We won't go there on women, but they'll definitely be addressed in other videos. So back to this. Again, man, language is key. Understanding the context behind the language is also key, probably even more so. Because I can say anything to you, but until you know the reason why I said it, you can't really fully digest what I said and respond to it and react to it. So why would you use that phrase? Again, they're not taking this guy seriously. You can even tell in Skip's tone and the way he referenced, not knowing it was Derrick Rose because of the dreads. Again, man, don't let the world's view of you determine your view of yourself. That's really at the heart of what I want to cover. You're going to go through trials in life. You're going to go through tribulations, peaks, valleys, different seasons. But what you have to do, you must have a solid foundation. Now, for me, my solid foundation is spiritual. I believe in the God of the Holy Bible, Yahweh. And I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And so my foundation is A1, brother. It's solid. No matter what I go through, I understand that, first of all, I'm not alone. I'm not forsaken. And that I can overcome and tread through anything that comes my way, not because of my own strength, but because of the strength that God provides and the peace that surpasses understanding that He gives me for trusting in Him. And so, again, when you have a strong foundation, whatever that foundation is for you, my suggestion for you, my advice, my counsel is that you make sure that that foundation satisfies both your flesh and your spirit. And so that's why that's part of the reason why that I am a follower of Jesus Christ, a believer in the God of the Bible. That satisfies me here on earth, and it certainly satisfies me in the afterlife. And so I would definitely recommend that you have the same considerations for whatever you place as your foundation. But back to this clip by Skip Bayless. Know your worth. Know your value. Don't let it be determined by anything other than you and whatever your foundation is.
Do I think that Derrick can keep this up? I don't.
No.
But do I think he could average, let's say he's averaging 14, could he average 18 a game? Would that be decent? Would that be reasonable?
Is Jimmy coming back? Because these shots that he got last night, some of those will be Jimmy shots.
That's 31 shots.
Right.
Yeah.
And Teague will be back.
He can take some shots.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I just don't know if the shots and the minutes are there. Skip, he can't play. He played 41 minutes. Can't play those kind of
I
minutes.
wonder how he feels right now. Right?
Hey, he might not can play the back-to-back. He might pull a Kawhi on him, Skip.
Yeah.
And because he's so violent in his movement.
He's violent.
And so this last clip from Undisputed poses the question, can he sustain this? And I've already alluded to what my thoughts are regarding his sustainment probability for this season. Of course, nobody would be foolish enough to seriously consider that Derrick Rose can average 50 points a game or have a quote-unquote magical moment every game. Of course not. The point of this game was to let everybody who is a naysayer, a hater, a shade thrower know that he still got it. He's still in his bag. He still can put up buckets. He still can control and dominate the game of basketball on the highest level. That was what this game represented. It didn't symbolize the second coming of Derrick Rose and this is what you can expect from here on out. That's rubbish. That's, again, another soundbite grab. And so, moving past that, you also heard the comment that he's so violent in his movement, and that brings up a noteworthy point regarding his explosiveness and how, again, I'll cover in the postscript that his body basically betrayed him from very early on. When you hear the word explosive, which no doubt has been attributed to him over the course of his career, you know, you look up that word and you understand that a definition of it is likely to lead to violence or hostility. And you can see a certain violence in hostility and pent up anger in the way that he moves. Every step, every gallop, you know, every part of his gait is violent, especially when he sets up to drive to that paint or he's on a fast break, you know. And so I think that term is definitely apropos to describe him, and it can also give some insight into why he's suffered some of the injuries that he has. Another synonym for that word is unpredictable. So again, it's very unorthodox. You know, his cutting, his leaping, the leg that he jumps off of, you know, even the landing, it's all awkward to look at, but it was exciting because of his stature compared to what he was able to do. And so again, man, just a little bit of a glimpse into the life of a supremely athletic individual whose body really wasn't set up for him to be able to do the things that he was able to do. Next up is the show First Take with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, both of which are seasoned sports analysts.
We had a vintage D-Rose sighting last night in the T-Wolves' 3-point win over the Jazz. Derek put on a show, dropping a career-high 50 points. The entire NBA took notice, blowing up social media, showing him a lot of love. This is the first time he scored over 40 points since 2011. What'd you take away from that?
Well, first of all, obviously everyone feels good for Derrick Rose, a guy who, when he was in high school, NBA ballers would travel far and wide to watch him play. And when he was 22 years old and he wins an MVP award, and let's not forget, the year he tore his ACL, he'd made improvements as a point guard over his MVP season. He was a phenom. He had the best quicks in the game, I think including everyone. He had the most fast, twitchy kind of stuff, the stuff that jumped off at you as different than everyone else. So to see him get back and have a career high is amazing. Congratulations to Derrick Rose.
Well, that's what you peel from it. I get it. What I peeled for it, I was incredibly happy for Derrick Rose because, you know, listen, there are things that go on, and a lot of times people forget that professional athletes are human beings. This is a guy that's been through an awful lot. Yeah. The kind of stuff that we don't need to be talking about on the air because it's his business, it's not ours. But the thing that I'm saying to you is that people in NBA circles knows that this guy has been through a lot. More importantly, they know how highly sensitive he is. And so because of that, he's one of the nicest guys in the world that you could ever meet as a professional athlete. He truly, truly is. And so it's impossible impossible to root against him. But when you look at Derrick Rose, don't tell me what you see a guy that makes Jimmy Butler expendable, particularly if he's healthy, because the one thing that we need to say is that Derrick Rose ain't going to be healthy. And I'm not saying he's going to get hurt, like literally he's just going to fall out tomorrow. I'm saying he is not at the stage in his career where he can go out there and give you 35 minutes a night, be that starting point guard for you, et cetera, et cetera. One of the reasons that you see people cheering him on so much is because they know how hard he worked, the kind of work that he put in just to get himself healthy compared to what he looked like last year. Remember, he only played 25 games last year, had to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers for a little while for personal reasons. But psychologically as well as physically, he's had an uphill climb.
And it seems when he left the Cavs, it was over. Because it's like you can't stay on the court, you can't stay healthy. The game, much like what happened to Carmelo, a little bit different in terms of style of play, but he dribbles a lot, he monopolizes the ball. The game has changed out from under his feet in like the 8 years, almost a decade since that traumatic injury, the ACL. So you thought at this point, and you're leaving the team and you have personal stuff going on, it just looked like the end.
What I wanted to really reference here is the fact that he alluded to how much of a phenom, quote unquote, that Derrick Rose was, even back in high school. And so, the spotlight has been on him. People often forget that the spotlight is on these young men from a very young age. If the vultures sniff any semblance of talent or even any means of exploitation, they will swoop in and take full advantage, man. They will see their prey and they will feast. And so, we're talking about a guy who's had a different life from a very young age. And so Max also referenced fast twitch muscles. And I think it's important to understand what that means. I like to provide some level of insight and education wherever I can. And so fast twitch muscles. As you can see, people have two general types of skeletal muscle fibers: slow twitch, type 1, and fast twitch, type 2. So the slow twitch muscles help enable long endurance feats like distance running. And then you have fast twitch muscles that fatigue a little faster and more quickly than those slow twitch, but are used in powerful bursts like sprinting or the type of acceleration that is required in the game of basketball. And so that's what Max was alluding to. And if you've seen any footage of Derrick Rose in his Chicago Bull days, you'll understand what that fast twitch reference is all about. Highly, highly, highly gifted man. His bounce was like no other. You know what I mean? And again, if you saw the prelude, then you definitely understand exactly what I mean. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. Come back, it'll give you the proper perspective. And so we move on to Stephen A. Smith's comments. And so I'll just get right to it. Stephen A. was very gracious, as he typically is, in his introduction to his comment. Derrick Rose, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in life. It's impossible to root against him. And I would say clearly it's not, because a lot of people, a lot of people definitely rooted against Derrick Rose and continue to. I've read comments with this new wave of attention that he's getting, how fragile he still is, and the Mr. Glass reference, and all of this foolishness, man. And so again, it's important to tune out the white noise. White noise meaning any kind of external force that is not adding anything to your life, but rather looking to take away from your life.
Derrick Rose had some interesting things to say. And let's take a look at the quote. Talking about him missing time and he's had the knee problems, the ankle problems this year. I think a lot of people don't understand that when I sit out, it's not because of this year. I'm thinking about long term. I don't want to be in my meetings all sore or be at my son's graduation all sore just because of something I did in the past. So that created all kind of reaction. And just a short time ago in Toronto, Rachel Nichols talked to Derrick Rose about his comments.
I was just worrying about myself, just worrying about my future like every player in the league does. And I don't know, I probably just think different. This is only my 7th year, but I think further on into my career, further on into my life, just trying to plan things out. And I think people took that out of term and took it out of content, and it is what it is, but I was being myself, and that's all I could be, so I could care less.
Take issue with what he said?
Of course I do. That was stupid. Derrick Rose is a great player. He's a great kid. Love his mom. That was stupid. You know, Ernie, we're so blessed. I limp around, but I go home to a big old mansion. There's people who work harder than Derrick Rose who go home to a shack. There are consequences to what we do for a living. We got the best life in the world. I'm a poor black kid from Leeds, Alabama, who grew up in the projects. And listen, I don't mind limping around. When I go home, it's a big old house. And I don't even know how to sheets. I got good sheets. I don't know the thread count, but they good. I got a big old car. I never have to worry about my bills. There are pros and cons to what we do for a living. Derrick Rose is making $20 million a year. He got a couple bad knees. That's disrespectful to maids, people who in the Army, who go out and kill people and get killed, got no arms and no legs. And listen, as much as I like Derrick Rose, that was just flat out stupid.
Did it bring his commitment in question in either of your minds?
I agree with Chuck a little bit.
Does it bring his commitment to that team into question?
I don't know about that, but I was taught that if you can walk, you can play. Imagine this, Kevin McHale, you see how he walked? Phil Jackson, you see how he walked? You see how Chuck walked? You see how I walk? But guess what? It was worth it.
See how I walk?
It was worth it. It was worth it. So, when you say comments like that, it sort of makes you look soft. But, like he said, he can only be himself, and if that's the way he feels, that's the way he feels. But me personally, if I could walk, I can play.
Well, I think that the context should have been more of, the reason I sit out games now is to help us win a championship.
Thank you.
And then the second part of that is, and that's also going to benefit me later on in my career and after basketball. But to precede it by, it's going to help you first after basketball, leads you to believe that maybe when you were hurt last year and everyone says, or the 2 years ago, that you could have played. So you leave all the speculation. The reason why Tim Duncan sits out and Manu Ginobili sits out and Parker sits out is because they're winning championships. And yes, it will help them in the long run. But basketball is not like football either, Ernie, where there's a difference between a concussion and a sprained ankle. Like you sit out games for concussion, what football guys have, or even Nick Vucevic had last year. Okay, cool. We understand that. That's lifelong. That could be more than just basketball. But they have
let me say
ACL. They have operations for things that for basketball players.
I walk around and I limp, and y'all make fun of the way I walk.
But it was worth it, right?
Hold on. I wouldn't change anything about my life, man.
Me either.
Listen, I grew up in Leeds, Alabama, in the projects. I bought my mom a house. I bought my grandmother a house. I bought my brothers a house. I wouldn't change anything about my life.
But I'll give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt in the context that he said it. We're taking a part of a quote and not a whole thought process. So maybe he did mean that, but just didn't express it the right way. Because I don't think as an MVP that you could be soft. I don't think as an MVP.
But you heard what he said to Rachel,
No. See, that's my point, Ernie. Yeah. The problem I have, first of all, sometimes we say things that you want to go back. He had a chance to clean it up with Rachel.
But said, if you don't understand, I don't really care.
Yeah, I know. That's what I have a problem with even more.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because an MVP can't have a low threshold of pain. It's impossible.
Oh, man. Where do we begin with this clip? All right, so you heard these gentlemen. I use that term loosely. Doing what they do in this segment of Inside the NBA, in which they covered at the time what were very controversial comments from Derrick Rose. Basically what he alluded to was the fact that he values his body and his life after basketball over the game of basketball. And of course to these gentlemen who have, quote unquote, left it all on the court, gave their whole life to the sport, they were offended by this, I guess what they deemed to be a lackluster, cavalier attitude towards the game. this game, which it sounds like they actually worship. Now, of course, it goes without saying that the NBA, the National Basketball Association, which is a professional basketball league of multi-billion-dollar business, has definitely paid them very well. It's definitely lavished them and afforded them a lifestyle that most people on the earth will not be able to attain or enjoy. And so I understand the general spirit of their affinity towards the game. And then you take the dynamic of, where they came from, their background. Now, Shaq came from a military family. He didn't really have the same level of disadvantage that Charles Barkley had, and then Kenny Smith was from New York. I don't think he lived a horrible or impoverished life either. But Charles Barkley very, very clearly, referenced his hometown of Leeds, Alabama a couple of times, in his true Charles Barkley repetitive fashion. And so again, you take all of that, put it in the pot, and the gumbo that you get is this borderline worship of the NBA. It's almost like they deify this. I'm so blessed, and I have a bunch of cars and a mansion and a thread count, all this foolishness that he's talking about, as if that negates the love that you're supposed to have for your body and for yourself and for your life and for your children. Again, man, I'm not trying to begrudge anybody their opinion. I'm just providing an assessment based on what I observed. And what I observed is a very archaic way of thinking, a very corporate way of thinking, a very brainwashed way of thinking by people who still are paid basically by the NBA. Yes, they work for TNT, but they're basically funded because of the NBA. And so, of course, their allegiance is going to be to the NBA. But what's important to understand is that you have to know that so that you won't become brainwashed into thinking the way that they think. Because they would have you think that you're supposed to give your life to a job that could care less about you once your value has diminished to them. So take your own life, for instance, and think about what you do for a living, or what you plan to do for a living. Now, short of owning your own business, that means you're going to have to work for somebody else. Somebody's going to have to write your checks. And so that means that they have assigned a certain value to you in the form of your salary, and then any other kind of, bonuses or overtime or what have you. But do understand that as soon as that value has diminished, for whatever reason, they found somebody who can do the job better than you, faster than you, for less money than you, then your value has taken a nosedive. Even think about this. In your contract, for the most part, I've had many jobs, so I've seen many, employment contracts. They'll say they can terminate you without due cause, or some similar language to that, to where they don't have to provide a substantive reason for terminating you. They can just terminate the contract whenever they see fit. So you tell a young man, a young woman, that they're supposed to give their life to an organization that has already made it very clear they can let you go whenever they want to, for whatever reason they deem fit. They find a new piece of equipment that can do your job better than you can. And so they say, you know what? It's been a nice 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I know that you're still trying to, stack up for your retirement, but take this little severance package and be on your way. Godspeed. And we're supposed to devote everything that we have, sacrifice relationships, sacrifice our family life, all for this kind of relationship with our employer. And so I salute and I applaud Derrick Rose for these comments, for having the enlightenment to understand that he has to look out for himself. And I'm sure that these injuries have provided him that pathway to that enlightenment. And I just think it's really disappointing for these men who are close to being 50, supposed to be elder statesmen, to denigrate this guy like that. I guess, again, I understand it. I get it. They're corporate whores, and I mean that in the most respectful way that you can use the word whore. But, Shaq, of of course, we see he's done about 200 advertisement deals with different companies, and Charles Barkley, he's known to be a mouthpiece to say controversial things. And Kenny Smith, this guy, well, he has knock knees. Nah, man, he's a good shooter. He has 2 rings with the Houston Rockets, So I have love for the gentleman. Let's just get into a few of the actual comments. So Charles said that was stupid. He alludes to how blessed an individual is to play in the NBA, and to how much money Derrick Rose is making or was making for that year. And then he does something that I think is really, really shameful, and making a comparison to anybody who's in the military or has a somewhat menial job. And I mean that in the most respectful way, but menial meaning low paying, lowly respected job, maid, janitor, whatever. And he said he has a couple of bad knees and basically says, so what? Gives a little shrug emoji. And again, man, are they blessed to make that much money just to play a sport? Absolutely they are. Does that mean that they should disregard their bodies and say, to hell with it, I'm going to leave it all out on the court, and whatever happens, happens? I don't think so. Now, if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. But you shouldn't project that onto anybody else, which is what I'm really alluding to. Feel how you feel. Have the type of mentality and approach that you have. But if you have somebody that has a differing approach, let them do them. We claim that we're a country of free speech and freedom to have a certain perspective. But whenever our perspective is contrast or converse to the popular narrative, then we get castigated. Then we get denigrated. Then we get attacked. And it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate because you're going to have people who side with you who are going to feel some kind of way toward Derrick Rose and are going to hamper themselves because they pour their life out to a sport that could care less about them. Just think about the number of people who've bounced in and out of the league, who have given their life to the sport, who have made some good money, but who can't function in society now. Where's the NBA in that case? This brotherhood that people allude to, and this love that we have for our fellow NBA players. I don't really see that manifested throughout the league to every player, from my vantage point at least. So again, it's important to value yourself and understand your value in whatever marketplace that you're in. Derrick Rose has been fortunate enough to make a lot of money, most of it coming from his Adidas deal. From what I can tell, Adidas has done right by him. They've stood by him much more so than the NBA has, and the NBA family has. In large part, there are still some people who have love for Derrick Rose, but again, you can see the mindset of some of these, what many have called meatheads. You know what I mean? Athletes who just have sports on their brain, and nothing else. They're very short-sighted, But again, you hear Derrick Rose talk about planning for the future, wanting to be there for his son and not be sore, but be able to play with his son and do those things that real men do, which is be fathers, be providers, and be protectors. Now, you tell me who Charles Barkley's going to protect with them 2 bum knees and his bum hip. You've seen the way he walks. And again, this is no shade towards the gentleman, but I'm just trying to make a point. You have to have values in life, and of course that Charles has his values, and I won't begrudge him that. But again, don't let anybody else's values become your values. Be able to give an answer for the values that you have. Be able to live with the values that you have, and don't let anybody project onto you. Let's move on and go to Ernie. His question. Now again, I understand he's the moderator. He has to bring up, questions. But it's always interesting to see how people frame and phrase and contextualize questions. So his question is, does it bring it, meaning his comments, Derrick Rose's comments, does it bring his commitment to the team in question? And so again, I'll give Ernie a pass because he is the moderator, but you can even tell, at least I can, that he has a bias against Derrick Rose for these statements, for his perspective. And then you have Shaq responding to that question, saying that if you can walk, you can play. You know, you see how we walk. And he pointed out himself, Charles, Phil Jackson, Kevin McHale. It was worth it. And so again, if that's how you feel, bro, that's how you feel. Double salute. That's you. But if that's not how he feels, let him do him. And don't bully people into acquiescing to your way of thinking. It's a very dangerous game, man. You have very impressionable people looking at you who idolize you, and we'll get into that. Serving idols, that's a whole different story. But you have people who look up to you and who are going to adopt this way of thinking as their own, irresponsibly so. And it's going to set them back in their life. It really is. It's going to set them back. And so that's why I think it's important to understand your platform, to understand the seriousness of your words and the gravity of your words and the impact of your words. And so again, that's why I'm here. I'm here to be that filter. I very much enjoy being that filter, and I look forward to doing so for a myriad of topics. And so getting back to Shaq, he ended by saying it makes you look soft. And so, we men, young men, old men, middle-aged men, whatever, we have to get out of that mindset, that primitive mindset of looking soft versus looking hard, and understand what it really means to be a man. And in order to do so, we have to have a set criteria for being a man and not have this sliding scale that society gives us. Again, for me, I believe in the God of the Bible. The Holy Bible is what I abide by, and it gives a very clear definition of what a man is supposed to be, the kind of rulership that a man is supposed to have in his life and over his family, how he's supposed to walk and talk and think and engage with people, both of his sex and the opposite sex, the kind of mate he's supposed to be with, the kind of children he's supposed to raise, the kind of mentality he should have towards work and towards his treasure on earth and his values. And so once you have a set type of criteria, then you can begin to build and work towards that criteria. But we again have this sliding scale about what manhood is from the beginning of time until now. Manhood has taken many forms and has been transformed into the feminized version that you have now in the world. But there's another problem. It's a hyper masculinity, or a warped view of masculinity, that gets us in trouble as men. To not look soft, to always appear hard, and to not emote responsibly. Of course, you should always be in control of your emotions. But it is good to emote. It's good to cry. It's good to show a passion that turns into anger, as long as you don't let that anger fester. The Bible tells us to not let the sun go down on our anger. So that anger should be quick. We should experience it. We should process it. We should get rid of it and move on. But we should definitely emote. And there's nothing soft about looking out for your own longevity and wanting to be there for your son and your family, and to live a long, prosperous, high quality of life after you leave the game of basketball, that doesn't care about you outside of your talent in the way that it can exploit you. So again, it's very, very, very important that you have a proper understanding of the world that you reside in. And then you have Kenny Smith, this guy. And I don't know which comment of the three gentlemen that I was more saddened by or disappointed with, but I know Kenny Smith's answer was very, very corporate. It's almost scripted. The term brainwashed pops into my mind when I think about each of these answers really, but particularly this answer. Basically, what he's saying is that basketball players should put basketball before self. And I guess more specifically, the NBA before self. He goes on to question the validity of Derrick Rose's injury severity and whether or not he actually sat out games that he could have played. And look, man, each man has to decide whether or not he's ready to play. It has to be a decision that you make based on, a number of factors. The value that you think you can bring to that given sport, that given team, that given game. How it will impact you down the road. How it will hurt you as far as your brand. These things aren't absolute, of course. It depends on what you value. But for the most part, athletes value their brand, their money, and their career. And then, some may put value on their post-career, but most are short-sighted. And so again, you have to assess what your values are. And Derrick Rose has told us very explicitly that he values self over the game of basketball. He values his family over the game of basketball. And again, I double salute him for doing so. And then you have Kenny Smith ending his diatribe with a ramble about the injuries of basketball and comparing them to the injuries of football, which made absolutely no sense. Now, yes, you can get a concussion at a much higher rate in the game of football versus the game of basketball, but there are some very dangerous injuries that you can sustain in the game of basketball. Look, man, to thine own self be true. It brings to memory the movie Any Given Sunday. If you haven't seen that movie, I definitely suggest you see it. Not only for this to make sense, but it's a pretty good movie. It's fairly long, about 2.5 hours, but it's a great movie. I used a clip of it in the Habib and Conor video. Actually, I used a clip of Jamie Foxx doing stand-up based on that movie. He was in the movie. But anyway, back to the movie, you'll note that there were a couple of players, namely the starting quarterback. Can't think of his name in real life. I think it was Cap. Name in the movie. I think it was Cap. In real life, his name is Dennis Quaid. And then you have Lawrence Taylor, who I believe, I forgot his name in the movie as well. But basically, both of these gentlemen were veterans. They had pretty much every injury that you could have at their position. Lawrence Taylor played the linebacker. And Lawrence Taylor was having vision problems. What's really sad is that he had an incentive in his contract that would pay him X amount of money if he got, I think, another sack or something like that, where he was incentivized to continue playing when he definitely should have not played. So in other words, he left it all on the field. He gave it all to the game. And in the end, I'll let you see what happened to him. But again, it just brings home what your value should be. Now, mind you, they had a doctor on that team that really had their best interests in mind, but they have been so brainwashed as players throughout their careers to believe that they should leave everything on the field of battle like warriors and die if necessary, that they had overlooked their own well-being and their own health to sacrifice for the team. Now, while you might say that's noble, I think it's foolish and it's sad. But again, that's just my perspective. And then last but not least is the show Jalen and Jacoby, which features the former NBA star Jalen Rose and sports writer and producer David Jacoby.
Last night, D. Rose went off. A veteran with a career high 50-point game. He was getting buckets from everywhere. Floaters, jump shots, drives, everything. And at the end of the game, he had a block, of all things, to seal the win for the Timberwolves. Jalen Rose, how does a player
like Derrick Rose, come out of nowhere seemingly and score 50 points in a professional basketball game?
I love to take the life lessons from situations like this. It's a story of perseverance, reinvention, humility, and also proving your naysayers wrong to the point where they have to get down on their knees, apologize to themselves because they slandered your name and assassinated your character when you had injuries, when you had personal demons, when you were missing games, when the team couldn't locate you on certain days, when you were traded from one team to another and not even given the opportunity to suit up. Nobody's talking about Derrick Rose. Then all of a sudden he gets the opportunity to shine on a big stage, and he takes full advantage of it.
Derrick Rose might just be back, but one thing I always say about life, another Jacoby life lessons, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
You have Jalen Rose at the top of the clip referencing how he likes to use instances like this for life lessons. You know, clearly I can relate to that. And he mentioned the terms perseverance and reinvention. And of course, you've heard me up until this point use the word perseverance a number of times. You've seen the definition of it or what it means to persevere and instances of perseverance, etc. So I definitely relate to, you know, Jalen in that regard. And he also used the term reinvention, which I had yet to use. But if you think about what it means to invent something, you know, Derrick Rose was invented, of course, by his own hard work, his own toil and labor, you know, putting in work in the gym, you know, the weight room, and, you know, getting his cardio and conditioning up. And so that was the invention. And then we had, you know, the setback and the dormant stage, you know, as far as on the court, where he was working and grinding, you know, and you know, definitely on the road to recovery. And then now we have the new invention of Derrick Rose, you know, a reinvention, a reinvigoration of Derrick Rose here. So that's what he's alluding to here. He also makes reference to getting a chance to shine, once again shine, you know, going back from his 2011 MVP campaign through all of the roller coaster ride of rehab back to this point. And so it's important to note and acknowledge the necessity to be opportunistic. And again, I don't mean to be opportunistic at the expense of anybody or anything, but what I mean is understanding the importance of having good timing, knowing when it is your time to step out in faith and be bold and have confidence in that move. Again, I'm a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and so I understand the concept of faith very well, and I know how difficult it can be to walk out and act in faith. And so I'm not taking it lightly when I tell you how important it is. You know, I know it's easier said than done, like a whole host of other things are, but it's definitely worth it. And so that would be my encouragement to all you who are listening. Definitely step out in faith, you know, knowing what your abilities are, knowing what your gifts and talents are, and knowing that you won't be alone, and knowing that God will take you where you need to go. Now, for all you who don't believe in God, I definitely am praying for you that you will come to the revelation that you know, he's real and that you need him, and that if you don't have him, you know, your life is doomed. But we won't go too heavy into that. You know, I want to stay on topic here, and also note that David Jacoby used the following term: D Rose might just be back. So again, you know, you think about how the world sees people and how the world assesses value, and to say that somebody might just be back means that they left, means that they were forgotten, means that, you know, they were disregarded, discarded, and again, I can say that with an understanding of, you know, the way in which people have reacted to Derrick Rose since his injuries or during his injuries, you know. So I know that that's what was wrapped up in that that phrase, D Rose might just be back. And so again, I'm harping on this point, but it's for a very good reason. Believe in yourself. Who else gonna believe in you? You heard the clip from my boy 2 Chainz, Titty 2 Necklace, whatever you want to call him. Who else gonna believe in you? Of course, I'm talking secularly, because again, if you believe in God, if you have faith in God, you understand that He has a belief in you. He has a purpose for you. But as far as this world is concerned, on earth, flesh and blood, if you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to believe in you? You dig what I'm saying? So it starts with you. It starts with the man in the mirror. Shout out MJ. But it really does. So you have to look in the mirror. You have to examine yourself and understand who you truly are and what you have to contribute to the world. And understand how the world may view you, how the world may treat you, and not let that deter you from being who you're supposed to be. So as you look at these tweets, these series of tweets from people across the world in response to Derrick Rose's career night, you've seen such things as "Hard Work is Undefeated" by CJ McCollum. I love that. I may actually put that on a t-shirt. Don't tell him I did that though. Reggie Miller, "Don't Call It a Comeback." I love that too, because people can get caught up in this and forget that he's been a solid player all the way through this. It's just that he's had a difficult time actually being on the court because of the injuries. But once he's been on the court, he's been productive. If he's given the opportunity, he's definitely been productive. And then, of course, to that point, Marcus George's Hunt said never lost it. Again, he just needed opportunity and health. And when opportunity meets health for Derrick Rose, you see what happens. And Isaiah called it inspiring. And of course, Isaiah Thomas, not the OG of the Detroit Pistons fame, but this young version who played with the Boston Celtics, most notably, and was in the MVP running 2 years ago. That Isaiah Thomas, he called it inspiring. Now, he's battled hip injuries. And so he knows about that long journey back from injury and then having to deal with not feeling like yourself and not being given an opportunity to showcase those skills once you feel like you're fully healthy. And then you have Stephon Marbury, a bit of a basketball story enigma, if you will. I'm actually going to do a story on him. But anyway, you see his comments. Remember when people were hating on you and making jokes? Enjoy your moment. And so I think this is bigger than the moment, but I understand what Stephon was getting to. He was the butt of many jokes for a long stretch of time. He got ridiculed and critiqued and criticized for leaving Minnesota for whatever reason. Again, we'll get into that. But he understands. So there's a bit of empathy that he has to Derrick Rose. And so I think it was a very sincere statement. And it just goes to show you, these tweets along with the rest of the tweets, the level of love that people have for Derrick Rose. And then it also just goes to show you the nature of the world we live in as far as how news travels and it becomes viral and how quickly people forget and move on to the next thing.
Derrick, the clock winds down and your teammates kind of mob you, and it seemed like you were very emotional. Can you just take us through what you were feeling and what was going through your mind and heart at that moment?
Just a lot of hard work put into my craft, and it's all about rhythm. And like I said a couple of days ago, it's all about finding my 1-2 into my shots and knowing what to do in the game and figure things out during the game, and coming back here, being comfortable with Tibbs and the staff, and just playing basketball, just being happy playing, actually, a lot. And like I said, it's all about just timing. A lot of people was confusing my opportunity with my confidence with opportunity. And tonight, I just had the opportunity to go out there and play the way that I normally play.
Having that opportunity and taking advantage like you did, when was the last time you felt like that on the court?
I mean, I feel like that every night, but I can't go in and shoot. How many shots I shot tonight? I can't shoot 31 shots every night. Like, it's a team effort. So coming in off the bench, trying to see what the game need, figure out the game. And tonight we was down 3 players. So, 2 players. So we had to figure things out on the go. And my teammates gave me that confidence to go out there and play the way that I did. Like, I come in, I work my butt off every day. And the last couple of years, I've just been looking for an opportunity to go out there and play the way that I normally play. And that's a free and easy game. And just having the ball in my hands. And majority of the game, my teammates were running with me. I was talking throughout the entire game on the defensive end and on the offensive end. And to tell you the truth, this is the most I ever talked to my teammates in my life, because I'm kind of like a vet on this team. And early on in my career, I was figuring things out too, but I had great vets. So being in this position, it's all about leading by example and just staying in their ear, because we have a young team.
Coach said earlier that he's told you that he thinks every NBA career, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and he thinks the end for you is going to be really a good one. When you hear a coach say something like that, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel good, especially coming from Tibbs. This is the same man that I really didn't get a compliment from him until after I won the MVP. And that's like no disrespect to him or anything. It just shows you that it's tough love, but I'm used to tough love. My whole life has been that way. My mom, she taught me the tough love. She had to be the pops and the mom, and she had to nurture. So I'm used to it, and if anything, when I'm out there, I just try to impress them. I come in on days that I shouldn't, shoot shots or whatever, and just try to get my work in, and I think it's finally paying off.
Most of the time when you have the ball in the half court, are you working off instinct?
Yeah. Back when I was coming off my injuries, I wasn't reacting, I was thinking, and that might sound weird or backwards to a lot of people, but when I'm at my best, I react instead of think. So I see what foot you got forward, I see how they're playing me, and I'm blessed and talented enough to get to certain spots by just you playing me a certain way. So the last couple of years, I didn't have that rhythm. I didn't know if I was going to float the ball. I didn't know if I was going to pull up. I didn't know if I was going to go all the way to the rim. I didn't know if I was going to fake pass, jump up, fake pass, and pass to the big. Like, it's all just coming together, but it took 6-7 years.
Derek, in terms of unforgettable nights at Target Center, this ranks up there. In terms of your career, and where does this rank for you?
I mean, for me, it's only the beginning. Like, it's still seven, this is the 7th game tonight. 7th, 8th game. Like, it's still early in the season. Me and Kat was just laughing about and Jeff was just laughing about last game, how we've been missing bunnies, like missing layups, point blank layups. But I keep reminding them on the court that we didn't even get to game 10 yet. You know what I mean? To kind of ease his nerves, because y'all have something to do with it. The media have something to do with adding pressure to certain players, and he's young. Like, you got to be able to grow with a player. Like, of course, the burden is big. He got a huge burden on him, but that's why I'm here, to take it off and kind of let him know that, like, it's like clear his mind, you know, like it's a lot going on, but he's a talented player, and when he's out there, he don't need to be thinking either. He just need to play, shoot the shots that he want to shoot, and we'll just figure how to play around him.
Derek, as far as tonight goes, what's going to stick with you years from now, whether it's maybe a certain play or shot or just kind of the feeling?
What, tonight?
Yeah, what's going to stick with you years from now, do you think?
I mean, we still got how many games left? 70-some games left. So, I mean, we still got a lot more games left. We played in a couple of days. It's already behind me, and like I said, it's not boasting or bragging about it, but still got a lot more.
Derek, you mentioned Cat. It seemed like you guys had a great two-man game going throughout the night. That's not something we've seen a lot of with you two as a combo. Do you think that's something that maybe will be beneficial going forward?
I mean, it's up to Tibbs. I mean, they're giving me my shot. They want me to shoot, They're giving me whatever I want. It's all about what shot I want to take and like looking at the game and just trying to like find ways to make the game easier for everyone else. Like I had a bunch of, if anything, what I would remember tonight is the dumb turnovers I had. I'm just a perfectionist, and with those turnovers, I think that it made the game a little bit harder for everyone.
Derek, the way your teammates huddled around you, embraced you at the end of the game, what does that mean to a player to have them, I don't know, support you like that in that moment?
It means a lot, man. It means a lot. It shows you that we're coming together as a team. We're getting close, and just touching, bro. Like just being in this position, like it still didn't even hit me yet. You know what I mean? Like words can't explain how I feel right now. You know, like it's been a while, bro.
You mentioned the haters last year a little bit. Is it nice to have a performance like this, even just a little bit, to maybe shut them up a little bit?
Nah, I'm past that, bro. I'm past the revenge part, and who said it? Frank Sinatra. I told you about that. The best revenge is massive success, and that's the mindset that I have right now. Like it's not about getting revenge. I'm God gifted. I got God's talent. So if I just go out there and play, you'll be able to easily see that.
Derek, you kind of strike me as somebody who wouldn't publicly get emotional and show your emotions at the end of the game like that. Is any part of you trying to like control that, and it was just kind of uncontrollable as that final buzzer went off at the end of the game?
I mean, I'm still going. I look relaxed up here, but I'm jittery as hell on the inside. For real, bro. I probably don't go to sleep tonight until 5 or 4 or something like that, but it's just who I am. My demeanor is just who I am. Like I'll never show how it affects me or how excited I am like that if I'm not on the court. So, but I'm very excited. It may not seem that way.
Another rebound. Exum has it blocked in the corner by who else? Derek, 2011 MVP, Rose.
Everybody just streams out on the floor to greet him, showing the respect. And they all know what this means to him. They know what he's lost.
Derek. I can see you're very emotional. A huge victory for this team, and it comes from you and your career high 50 points. What does it mean to you, Derek?
Man, everything, man. I work my ass off, bro. I wouldn't have did this for the franchise, the organization, the fans, everybody, man. I wouldn't be able to play the way I play, man.
We weren't sure if it was the throwback jersey you were wearing, but you did look like Derek Rose of old. And what did it feel like going through from beginning to end?
I'm doing anything just to win, man. I play my heart out. My teammates told me before the game, just play my game. And tonight was a hell of a night.
I'm D Rose.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Who else gonna believe in you? Career high for Derek Rose.
That's crazy.
Who else gonna believe in you? Believe in yourself. Yeah. Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Believe in yourself.
Half a century for Derek Rose here tonight.
And so what you've experienced thus far is a glimpse into the world of a highly gifted, athletic, wealthy, passionate, resilient, humble young man who makes a living as a professional basketball player and who has had a roller coaster ride of a career which has been scrutinized and criticized by the masses, contemporaries, media, and fans alike. And as you can see, that boy's still winning. He's still winning, man. I'm so proud of him. Without knowing the gentleman personally, I definitely resonate with him. His humility, his character, I just love it, man. You know, despite the naysayers, the haters, the shade throwers, he stayed true to who he is. He never let the outside world dictate his disposition. Never let them dictate his decisions. He's always kept his inner circle tight and right. He's understood his value, and he stayed on top, man, in his personal life, and that's all that really matters, you know. And of course, I'm talking about, you know, secularly speaking, as far as on the earth. We know that careers come, careers go. Money comes, money goes. Fame and fortune, it's here but for a second, man, for a snap, for a moment in time. But what's important is that when all that passes away, when the dust settles, our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual health is what's important. Our loved ones, our relationship to them is what's important. And we see that Mr. Rose has a complete handle on that. He understands that very, very well. And that's why I said that he's winning. I definitely applaud him for his grit. And I definitely still believe in him as a basketball player. But much, much, much more importantly than that, I believe in him as an enlightened young man who has shaped his perspective properly. He has his values properly aligned. Stay tuned, beloved, for that postscript. It's coming soon. Until then, be blessed and be a blessing. That's a wrap. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and comment. Also, check us out on IG, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, and Patreon, all under LUSU Media Group. And as always, you can get in-depth content on Patreon once you subscribe. Also, check out our LUSU Designs lifestyle apparel, which you can now purchase online. See the description for the links. And last but certainly not least, shout out all my sponsors for their support. Definitely appreciate the love on their end. Their info is also below in the description. Alright, family, until next time, be blessed and be a blessing.